My name is Giles Coren. I'm a writer, restaurant critic and unashamed glutton. I'm being joined by Sue Perkins, performer, broadcaster and part-time vegetarian on an extraordinary journey exploring the dining habits of the last 500 years. Each week we'll be medically tested, dressed the part and forced to trough our way through the breakfasts and banquets of Britain's culinary past. This week we'll be going back to Restoration England, to the 1660s, where we'll be struggling with snails,
oh God!
peeing in chamber pots,
I tell you what, it's got an absolutely charming foam on it.
and drinking ourselves silly.
I have been off my face since 9 o'clock this morning.
All the while trying to cope with the latest fad, the fork. (1660s) Britain saw the monarchy restored to the throne after 11 years of parliamentary and military rule under Oliver Cromwell. The Restoration, as this period of history is commonly called, saw Charles II made king and a return to gargantuan banquets and endless drunken toasts to His Majesty. I'll be living the life of an early civil servant of the age, a clerk with connections on about £500 a year, enough to keep a cook servant and to keep me in good stock of the foodie obsessions of the day: carp, claret and Parmesan cheese. The gallant Sue Perkins will be my foolhardy bride. She'll be expected to cook a fine dinner, to keep her hair in good curl and to learn the latest fashionable dance steps from the continent. The court of Charles II, the merry monarch, was notorious for its conspicuous consumption, so before I step back into the 17th century, I'm off to the clinic to check that I can cope with what's in store. Hi, Dirk Budke I need. Dirk Budke, an expert in gastroenterology, nutrition and bacteriology, gives me a series of tests to find out how healthy I am.
So far you're not a good patient, you are far too healthy.
Good. I might be fighting fit today, but what does Dirk expect in a week's time?
So you know what you're going to do now. You're going to eat extremely unhealthy for the next week.
I'm going to eat 17th century, yes, Restoration. Is that very unhealthy?
It is. First of all, you had a very high protein intake. So a lot of meat, and fat, of course. Not much vegetables, because they were very suspicious of vegetables. They thought it might be dirty, comes from the ground. And severe constipation is something you can expect in the next week. A lot of meat will demineralize your bones, so it will release more calcium. And calcium, of course, is one of the main factors to get kidney stones, bladder stones. They had beer for breakfast, they had wine for lunch and wine for dinner.
What's that going to do to me?
Well, you will become tired and sluggish. You experience a lot of heat.
I mean, you're saying I'm going to be glowing with...
You put a lot of strain on your liver. So the liver has to work very hard and the liver releases a lot of heat.
Lovely. A week of sweaty armpits and pee as thick as treacle. From that cheery little session, I have discovered that at the end of my week of 17th century diet, I am going to be tired, I'm going to be hot, I'm going to be slightly overweight, and I'm going to be constipated. And if I carry on too long, I'm going to end up with a bladder stone the size of a tennis ball. With my cheery meeting at the clinic still ringing in my ears, I'm joined by Sue and look forward to a week of colic and constipation. Cooking our food for the week will be chef and food writer Allegra McEvedy. She'll be stepping into the shoes of a 17th century cookmaid and will be cooking with the most aspirational ingredients of the age.
So here we are in Restoration England, and clearly we've got some fantastically expensive proper ingredients here. Look at these beautiful carp. They were considered a real luxury goods. So those were obviously quite expensive. The tongue was expensive. The salmon was really expensive.
And the ultimate Restoration foodie status symbol, the coxcomb.
What's that?
Coxcombs.
Looks like a mini triceratops.
First meal of the day, however, is breakfast.
Breakfast. Barrel of oysters, bread and cream, ale.
Breakfast was not the set meal beloved of today's cereal manufacturers. More often than not, it was taken on the go, any time before 11 o'clock, and would always start with a glass of ale.
And they thought that milk was very bad for you and would make you sick. So
right.
yeah, essentially, you drink beer, ale. It's called small ale, which is the kind of the weaker one, which is about 3.5%. Instead of orange juice and instead of coffee, I'm happy with that. And instead of water, and instead of almost everything.
It smells nice.
Is it nice?
Yeah.
For the next 7 days, we won't be drinking any water at all. In the 17th century, London's water was undrinkable, and even babies were taken straight from the breast to the beer bottle.
Already a bit tipsy, it's time to get stuck into making our dinner. In households with only one servant, it was a vital duty for housewives to get involved with the cooking. And first up is a classic neat's tongue.
So yeah, this is what we call an ox tongue, but to them it's called a neat's tongue.
Yep. There's nothing neat about it. Really,
Yeah. What we've got to do really is just get this outer casing off, because underneath is just one big
long proboscis. Yeah.
This morning, we'll be cooking from one of the best-selling cookery books of the age, The Queen's Closet Opened. Purporting to reveal the household secrets of the Queen Mother, the French Catholic Henrietta Maria, it was required reading for aspirational households like our own. It included recipes like this one, neat's tongue wrapped in caul, the amniotic sac of a calf.
You want it on your mantelpiece? I tell you what, I could nurse that. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about that.
On it goes and in the oven. Now we roasted.
Yep.
Dinner. First course. Stewed carp. Jowl of salmon. Pullet in almond sauce. Claret.
The midday meal, the largest of the day, was called dinner, not lunch, and was taken any time between midday and 4 p.m.
Stewed carp in a dish.
Carp was really nice.
Was it?
What I love as well are these newfangled forks. Which basically you can spear your epiglottis.
I have no use for these at all. What is this newfangled thing that's come into the house? The two-pronged fork was brought back from the continent by Charles II in 1660. Only the flashiest households could afford them.
The salmon is gorgeous.
This is all about what was it called? Jowl.
How many shillings will you
there's
give me if I
brain.
suck out an eye?
I'll give you a groat.
A groat for sucking out an eye?
Is that a lot of groat?
A groat.
I'll give you a bag of shillings.
Big bag of shillings.
Big bag of shiny shillings.
Big line of
Get it in
shillings.
your mouth. Get on, suck
Why
it.
don't you
There's
suck an
a
eye?
brain on
Why
the
don't you
outside.
suck an eye?
Because that's a delicacy. I'm just eating the boring fillets of just lean salmon meat. Oh yeah, she sucked it. Go on. Have you got the eye out? She's got the eye out there. That's hence the expression, that could have your eye out. Swallow. 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 Come on.
Oh, I swallowed an eye!
She's a celebrity. Get her out of here.
Yeah, listen, I want...
You actually just sucked it right out of its socket, didn't
Yes,
you?
I did.
What was it like?
It was like an oily plug of snotty, warm, sort of tense material sliding down my throat. But I've got a hogshead of groats. But you know what? Now I've done it, I feel foolish because I don't even know what a hogshead of groats is. Is it a hogshead full of
I
groats?
said a hogshead of oats.
Groats.
I said oats.
Groats.
Second course. Neat's tongue. Cheese. More claret. Tansy.
A tansy was a sweet, eggy omelette flavoured with a popular herb of the age, the tansy flower.
The flavour, it's got a kind of fruity sharpness to it, and then there's this sort of explosion of sort of cool heat, a bit like peppermint.
Used as a flavouring for puddings and omelettes, it's actually a toxic plant, and in large quantities is fatal.
This is so delicious.
That is good, isn't it?
This is so good. Please can I have some cheese? Look at how lovely it looks.
As it was impossible to transport milk over long distances, business-minded farmers would convert it into cheese and butter. By the 17th century, cheese had become a flourishing industry, with every region producing its own variety.
I've never been so tired eating a meal in my life. Oh, here we go. Always with a sword. Always with a sword trick. Right. You'll cut your hand.
It's the linen wrap, for the Lord's sake, woman, give it here. We just
Yeah,
get it
but
on.
you've proved that you were more inadequate at cutting it. Right, I've got a piece now anyway.
Right. I didn't know they served cheese in a sock in this period. There you
All
go.
we need then is a little mini dagger to finish off.
Would you like a piece of cheese?
I'd love...
There. No fuss. While I leave my progressively pickled wife to the glories of tongue and tansy, I'm off to the coffee house for a burst of male sobriety.
Morning. Can I get a skinny caramel cappuccino?
Yes.
And do you mind awfully sticking it in there?
From their arrival in the 1650s, coffee houses took London by storm. By 1663, there were 82 coffee houses in the city of London alone, almost as many as today. Soon, coffee houses became established as centres of intellectual debate, visited by writers, wits and politicians.
Hello.
Here I meet writer and historian Markman Ellis.
But what they really liked in the coffee house was the sociability that they found when they got there. The table would be covered in newspapers and pamphlets and in manuscript poems and things, and you'd talk about the news. So you'd walk in and you'd say, you'd order your coffee, dish of coffee boy, and you'd say, what news? And you'd mean, what have people read in the newspaper, but also what have they heard? The government in fact was so worried about the coffee houses in the 1660s that they made various attempts to try and suppress them.
Really? This is
Because
exactly the same as the
Kevin's-
Chinese trying to suppress Google, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyone talking about anything, bam!
Yes.
When the king tried to suppress coffee houses in 1666, there was uproar in the streets.
Back at home, ever the dutiful wife. I'm still stuck in the kitchen making my husband's supper. Pigeon pie.
Your friend. The pastry should be 2 inches thick round the outside. Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of...
That's thicker than a modern prefab house.
Which does make it more understandable as to why they called it a coffin.
Yes.
Called a coffin, the pastry crust would not be eaten, but would be used and reused as a vehicle in which to cook and then preserve the pie's ingredients over the course of a whole week.
I can't describe what this is like. It's just really, really hot oil slug, like Play-Doh.
So you want to kind of move it round.
The coffin is then filled with various ingredients.
Yeah, exactly. So you just...
Cock's heads.
They just go in whole.
Yep.
Followed by coxcombs, sweetbreads, sheep's tongue, bone marrow, chicken, veal, a few token pigeon's breasts, oysters, and a bit of nutmeg.
Right, so as I put... That is like the most sinister lucky dip that you could possibly... it's a sort of velvety, cold syrup of dead breasts, legs. Oh, I tell you what, I've struck gold. Oh, a chicken's head. Oh dear, very, very, very drunk now.
Liability in the kitchen.
Drunk and sweaty.
Supper was taken by candlelight, around 6 or 7 in the evening, and as one French visitor to the British Isles wrote in 1698, "They are gluttons at noon, but abstinent at night."
Supper, pigeon pie, cold meats, cheesecake, claret.
This is like a cadaver carousel, this one. It's so much dead animal in this you can't believe it. So what I'm going to do is just cut round this little top we made. Just got a bit excited. Oh dear. Oh dear.
With fuel an expensive commodity, pies, meats and cakes would be baked 1 day a week and eaten for suppers and breakfasts over the next 7 days.
Oh.
Come on!
Oh, with the comb still
With the
on.
comb, we've got some separate comb.
It's 6 inches of...
Just layers of sad, dead things. Have a bite of the comb and see what it's like. Oh dear! If you like that comb, maybe you'd like to try this one. Oh god, it's absolutely... Texturally, it's like Jelly Baby. A taste of salt.
This is your revenge for me going to the coffee shop, is it?
Yes, it is. And you keep going to the coffee shop and I will keep making you eat comb and entrails and knackers and heads and everything in a pie called a coffin.
But soft woman, I thought the whole thing was that the 17th century housewife provided a lovely table for her man to come back to so that he didn't spend his time out there whoring and drinking beer.
Yeah.
Frankly, a couple of pints and half a guinea's worth of quickie round the back of the tavern is a lot more appealing than than that, which I just nibble the head off.
I've got a cookery book. It looked nice. I thought, give it a go. You know, I felt nervous about it, but you know, it was turned out all right. I think you've got off lightly, to be honest. We were supposed to have udders in this, sow's udders, and larks.
Oh, pull the udder one.
For me, it's all been the tansy today.
Yeah.
It's all about the tansy.
The little flimsy egg white omelette thing.
I have been off my face since 9 o'clock this morning, and whilst it's a good idea to drink 2 litres a day, I don't know that it's that good to drink 2 litres of ale a day.
I feel unexpectedly terrible after one day. All I've had is a few drinks, the odd coxcomb, some fairly grotty food, and not really enough water, and I'm sweaty and smelly, and I can't sleep. After a restless night, it seems it's not just the lack of water that's causing problems.
I woke up, wanted to be sick, felt hot again, felt cold, felt very paranoid, and a bit dark and sad inside. The first thing I did when I woke up was I looked in a medical dictionary, and tansy poisoning. I've poisoned myself. I've got 17th century poisoning.
Symptoms of tansy poisoning include gastritis, paranoia and convulsions, and there is no known antidote.
Leaving Giles downstairs with his gruel feeling sorry for himself after last night, I've decided to burn off my tansy delirium with some 17th century exercise.
Good, then we'll start again going round each other. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1.
While the men had their coffee houses, women needed other ways to while away their time. And what more fashionable restoration pastime than dancing?
Oh, I've got my shoe caught.
Have to little bit of assistance, madame.
Got quite sore feet after the dancing. A little bit of corn forming, and of course, the best thing for corns, really, according to this book, the best remedy is one of these. It's a mobile corn preparation. It's a snail, and all you do, just trying to stop the sick rising there, is just pop that on a little place there where there might be a corn. Now, the actual book here says to bruise the snail. It's hard to bruise a snail without killing it, so I think they mean crush it and rub it onto the actual corn. I can't really find the words to describe to you what that's like, but put it this way, that I have very ticklish feet, and that is very interesting. But what it's doing is taking the focus away from the corn. I don't care about the corn now. I don't care about anything. Oh God! Oh, this is just
Today we're hosting a dinner at one of the finest houses of the age, Ham House. Our meal tonight will be a dinner in honour of the return of King Charles II, and we'll be sampling dishes from the greatest cookbook of the period, Robert May's The Accomplished Cook. Written in 1660, it glorifies a return to the golden days of dining, before the Puritan era cramped everybody's style. Cooking our feast will be Michelin-starred French chef Daniel Galmiche.
Oh, wow, that'd be perfect for the hash.
In Restoration England, having a French chef was seen as the very height of sophistication.
Dinner. First course. Ordinary pottage, olio podrida, stewed oysters, quaking pudding, boiled pike.
Among our guests are noted food publisher Tom Jane and chef Derek Quelch.
Oh, here's another one. Is that the same?
All the food, the sweet dishes as well as the savoury, would arrive at the same time. Called service à la française, dishes were to be symmetrically arranged on the table in close reach of each diner. While the guests are tucking into the pottage, the olio, the highlight of our first course, has been causing consternation in the kitchen.
Oh, it's so heavy, huh? It's too much meat. I've never seen a mix like this before. What should be extravagance, opulence, or madness? I'm sweating.
Robert May's olio consisted of 20 different animals, including the most prized meat of all, venison.
We've got partridge, we've got widgeon, we've got teal, we've got duck, we've got pheasant, guinea fowl, capon, all together in a big pot. Massive amount of meat.
A symbol of the hunt, it was designed to show off the boundless riches of one's estate.
Oh my goodness gracious me.
That, I believe,
Is the old olio. Hello, old olio. Wow. Blimey, O'Reilly.
You know it's good when it takes two people to carry it to a table.
It does. Let's not break it.
Is it to do with the volume of ingredients? I mean, it seems to me that the vast swathes of animals, or most of which are unnecessary in terms of flavour, I would say, but is all that part of just showing off and saying, look how wealthy I am, the king is back, let's have one big long party after this slightly dour regime?
They certainly were celebrating French influence.
After the Puritan era, household spending on food and entertaining amongst the aristocracy increased by a staggering 5 times. No wonder if all this went into one pot.
Good Lord, you've got enough food there, haven't you? Wow, that's a whole ton. Is that a whole ton you've got there?
Whole ton.
Yeah,
Good
I like
Lord.
a bit of time.
Well,
And a breast of iguanodon, I think.
After the meat mountain, stewed oysters and quaking pudding, a sweet wobbling cake of almond, rosewater and candied peel.
that's good.
And then we tackle the pike.
Oh, the pike's got a heavy crust to it, I tell you. You try it, it's very unyielding. Can't break the surface of it. It's incredible.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Very, very
That
good.
was the,
Excellent.
my
I
word.
actually got a pomegranate in my face.
Pike is yummy.
Is it?
Absolutely yummy.
Right, I will. Hang
You're
on.
so eccentric. I knew you'd like the pike.
Second course, hash, tongue pie, lobsters, buttered crab, snow cream, larded pigeon, mince pies, peas.
With the excess of food and the lack of water, I've started to feel distinctly peaky. But before I can pause for thought, the hash, a dish of minced beef with almonds and nutmeg, arrives.
Now that's basically mud
decoration?
with sprig.
They've dug up the rosemary mud and brought the mud with it.
What is this? You expect meringue, you expect sweetness, you get basically shaving foam. That is egg and rose water. Ooh! No wonder they killed the first king if this was the kind of food they ate. My, it's awful. It's shit. Oh, thank God the peas have arrived. And on top, there's just a bit of comb.
Is that squid?
Coxcombs.
Is that coxcomb?
They were seen as a delicacy, but they are very, very labour-intensive to actually prepare.
So what have you got to do with them?
You've got to salt them, then you've got to take the outer skin off, and then they're boiled.
In 17th century Britain, it was still the custom to serve and eat sweet and savoury dishes on the same plate, at the same time.
I don't know, make it up as you go along. Just put the fruit on at the beginning. Send them a crab if they're grumbling. Yeah, put all the food in the one big pot, boil it up and serve it.
I'm having crab a la Snow Mountain, I've decided, which is my new combination royalist dish.
As if we aren't stuffed within an inch of our lives already, the final course arrives.
The banquet course. Ice cream, pineapple, strawberries, jellies, candied fruit and nuts, metheglin.
Ice cream is the brand new thing. It's the latest sensation.
In 1671, both ice cream and pineapple were presented to the king for the first time. The pineapple would then capture the public imagination like no fruit before or since, becoming a status symbol of the super wealthy and appearing all over British buildings for the next 150 years.
Right, toast. With all due respect.
To
This is a celebration of the royalist movement, to fun.
Oh, fun. Bacchus. To Bacchus.
To Bacchus.
Please, please let me drink some water. Please let me see a vegetable. Please let me eat a thing that... I've heard of nose to tail eating, but all I've eaten is noses and tails. What about the rest of the animal?
I'm actually ill. I never get ill. I don't get ill. I never get ill. I haven't been ill for 2 years. I've not had a cold, nothing. It's a little bit of hangover, you know. I was absolutely honking the other night, but, you know, it was a lot of booze again. But I'm ill.
After 2 days of overwrought food playing havoc on our constitutions, we've decided to skip town. Today we're travelling to Cambridgeshire in the hope that some country cooking might give us a rest. In the 17th century, this journey took 17 hours in a flying coach, and to protect their complexion from the dust, ladies were required to wear a visage.
I think I might put my visage on. Yeah.
Yes, wouldn't want to scare the natives.
The visage was a fashionable accoutrement for the Restoration it girl. Having 2 holes for the eyes and a slit for the mouth, it was clamped onto the face by a button held between the teeth, which must have seriously inhibited conversation. Halfway through the journey, and we're feeling distinctly peckish.
Oh, what a perfect spot. I've heard a lot about this place. Just the place for a pit stop.
Rest stop inns were a common sight on the 17th century road, tempting tired travellers with food and ale. So we found a 21st century equivalent, bringing our own breakfast, which the chefs have agreed to prepare for us.
Morning. Where are we going? Hello. Hello. I'm assuming there that you didn't want the American-style breakfast.
No,
It'll take 6 months to get it.
I have to say, the sticky waffle pudding might well be waiting a couple of centuries for.
Breakfast. Venison pasties, turnips, buttered asparagus.
Blimey, that was quick.
We don't hang around. No.
I do hope you enjoy.
Brilliant.
I think we certainly will. What are you doing there? The natives are staring.
Venison pasties were staples of 17th century dining, and often the centrepiece of a dinner party. But at smaller inns and taverns, they were often made of beef and passed off as venison to the undiscerning traveller.
Look at this, my dear. As a
Just a whole side of dead thing in.
A whole side of what?
The venison was cooked in its own blood and spices, and the pasties were then sealed with clarified butter in the hope of preserving them for up to a week.
I can't describe the smell of that.
I think we better order something.
But it's definitely... It's been hanging around for a while. That was,
I thought I felt rough last night, but it seems my authentic mock venison pasty has made me feel even worse.
Oh, you could pretty much wring that out.
Well, I'm so running with sweat. I'm so boiling. Armpits running, face just running. That's it. Oh.
This is the latest thing from a new world. They call it the very fast rotating windmill.
Safe journey, take care of yourselves.
Thanks very much indeed. Cheers.
Take care, bye.
After a final few hours on the road, we arrive at our 17th century country cottage for another slap-up dinner. This time cooked for us by local chef and food historian Alison Sloane. Cambridgeshire was home to Oliver Cromwell and a stronghold of Puritan thought, which focused on austerity and purity, particularly in religion. Our dishes today are from the catchily titled cookbook, The Court and Kitchen of Mrs. Elizabeth, commonly called Joan, Cromwell. Written in 1664 by Charles II's chef Thomas Milburn, this cookbook was actually royalist slander, aiming to poke fun at the frugal households of Puritan Britain. Here, Mrs. Cromwell's food is jokingly deemed more fit for the barn than the palace, and the collapse of Cromwell's regime blamed on his beggarly court and his severest abstinence.
Dinner. Marrow pudding, Scotch collops, roast sheen of beef, white pot, caudle.
What on earth is this?
This butter's cabbage.
Cabbage?
A vegetable?
Don't be ridiculous.
Oh, yes.
What an absolutely lovely, lovely piece of beef. I think it looks really... The colours are so beautiful, and it's so simple, and it's perfect. There's no pretension to it. Like that stuff... Oh, the minced meat with the sort of fruits in it, the barberries and all that kind of... It's just too much. That's all that sort of noncy urban court food. I'd much rather be in the countryside and eat this.
It seems the royalist joke has backfired. Sensing that we're feeling a bit below par and knowing we're not allowed any water, Alison offers us the nourishing drink of the day, caudle.
Here, do you want some? How about you? See, I'm getting quite... Oh, dear.
You're joking.
Dear, oh dear.
I was expecting something clear.
Oh,
my word.
A highly nutritious concoction made by stewing oats in hot spiced ale, caudle was taken into the fields by farmers and recommended for invalids.
It smells like mulled sick. Or it tastes
Sour. It's sour. It's like... Of course, this is what gave the Puritans their very special facial expression, which was this. They just had a lug of that. It's gastritis with oats. It's horrible.
Next up is white pot, the original bread and butter pudding, but made with bone marrow instead of butter.
And it's just throbbing with
Can
cow
I just say,
DNA.
that's the first time that you've actually served me first, because you want me to check this little baby out.
I think it smells absolutely fantastic.
I actually had a heart moment and I haven't even swallowed it.
That's nice. That's really good. That's quite extraordinary.
Loaded up with our country calories, there's only one thing for it: a bracing walk.
How far do you think one would have to walk off a bone marrow white?
To London. I'm going to walk to London from here. Yeah,
How far is that?
It's about 100 miles.
In truth, we're only off to Cambridge, for I've got supper to attend at Magdalen, the college at which a young Samuel Pepys, the greatest diarist of 17th century Britain, arrived in 1651.
Ah, the old college. Doesn't she look pretty tonight?
I wouldn't know, I'm not allowed to be here.
Unfortunately for Sue, there was one major difference between then and now. Women were not allowed in.
Well, it's the 1660s. There's nothing that women really need to know apart from crocheting and a couple of words of French, and you've got those.
A couple of years ago, I'd have been allowed to learn Latin, thanks very much.
When, exactly?
The Puritan era, absolutely. The Quakers thought it was very enlightening for women to learn things. And as soon as the king gets back, Charlie too, I've got to recede back into the darkness and become a thicko again.
Whereas the Puritans advocated female education, Restoration thinkers thought serious studies were harmful to women's weaker mind.
Well, you have a nice night.
I'll do my best. Remain stupid.
I will.
Joining me at my extremely masculine table are academic Dr. Richard Luckett and two history students.
Supper, peas pottage, chewits, college pudding, stewed prunes, ale.
Peas pottage was basic, kind of fundamental food, absolutely basic nosh. Peas pottage hot, peas pottage cold, peas pottage in the pot, 9 days old. It's made from dried peas, and that, of course, is a huge advantage of them, that you can keep them, and so it's not seasonal.
Maybe it's because I'm still not feeling too good, but this 17th century cup of soup isn't going down well.
You see, I think you three, all subsisting, generally speaking, on college food, have just lapped up your peas pottage. I, as a kind of roue restaurant critic about town, slightly disappointed with my green sludge. Is this general college fare? Has this gone down well?
I like it. Yeah.
Well, I've never been able to criticise institutional food.
Really?
I've always thought of it as... I've been in institutions since I was 6.
We should stress that.
So you just eat it and...
After the chewits, small pies made from minced tongue and candied fruit, we tackle the crowning glory of our supper, college pudding.
This is a revolutionary period, I gather, for the pudding. No, they just invented the pudding net or something, the pudding cloth.
You could steam a pudding in an old shirt or whatever.
But or immediately in the sleeve of your shirt, you could actually fill...
No, that must have some use.
That
must have, indeed.
Writing your diary with one hand, you just steam a pudding
yes.
in your cuff. And yes, this is just about the right size.
Cooked in this fashion, the pudding, one dish that could truly be described as a great British invention, was unveiled for the first time in Cambridge in 1617. Back in London, and still feeling decidedly off-key, we've decided to spend the day at home food-free. While I practice the latest tunes on my flageolet, Sue's feeling fat, so she's gone upstairs with a large carafe of wine and a miracle cure for cellulite.
Well, I've got some advice here to shed some pounds quickly. This is for big-bellied women in need of self-governance, which is starting to tick more boxes than I'd thought possible. Bathe in claret wine, infused with wormwood, mint, chamomile, sage, and squinath, I think it says, which I think was a kind of reed or rush. Oh, I tell you what, that looks good enough to bathe in. Wormwood was another popular toxic herb. Causing vertigo and delusions, it was also used for flatulence, intestinal worms, and the one thing I'm certainly not suffering from, a lack of appetite. Of course, the great thing about this bath is once you've had the bath, you can drink it, which is excellent. And yeah, that wormwood really adds something to the mix. It really does. Wormwood would later become the principal ingredient in absinthe, the drink that sent most of the 19th century barking mad.
Last night, I dreamt that Lord Sebastian Coe took me to the Olympic Games site in East London to show me around the new stadiums. Whereupon he dug a hole in the ground, threw me in it, and put a pastry lid on top. That'll be wormwood poisoning.
After last night's wormwood overdose, I'm giving Sue a secret treat for today's dinner. I'm taking her to Covent Garden, the epicentre of Restoration London. Built in 1630, Covent Garden Piazza was London's first public square. By the time of the Restoration, with increasing amounts of city land being turned over to market gardens, Covent Garden became England's most important vegetable market.
Dinner. A city salad, 1 hour boiled mushrooms, pickled samphire, carrot pudding, lettuce.
Are you not amazed by the sight of these vegetables?
I'm amazed. This is a lovely... Look at this, how beautiful this is.
This is a pickled salad. Will that do you?
Of course it'll do me. Let's have a go.
A grand salad.
So
Basically,
this is all John Evelyn stuff, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
John Evelyn was one of the great men of the age, a famous diarist, politician and man of letters. Believing that the early death of his wife was caused by her unhealthy diet, he was the first man to champion the health benefits of the humble vegetable.
So, and he actually knew the thing that we've suspected all this week, that really all that kind of diet kills you. Yeah. And he got terribly into salad and published these books of vegetable recipes. Lettuce for the first time. It's quite amazing to think that having thought of vegetables as a suspicious thing for so long, that it was just overnight John Evelyn changed the way people thought about it.
I think the tart is amazing, actually. I really like the tart. I think the tart is fabulous.
Before Evelyn, most vegetables were thought indigestible and fit only for the strongest constitutions. Even the poor preferred bread and sold their turnips as cattle feed. With the rise of market gardens, vegetables finally began to be eaten for their own sake and were gradually declared healthy foods.
Pickled samphire, according to my reading of John Evelyn, tells me that it's meant to clear the passages.
That's lovely.
So are you surprised, my dear? Are you pleasantly surprised?
I'm pleasantly surprised. You've done me a proud here.
Your lips are like the full ripe cherry, which, when they open, discover a treasury greater than that of Indian ivory.
In the afternoon, I decide to swat up from a 17th century book of chat-up lines, because I've got a date.
If I use this book, get her home, get her kit off, get her on the divan, then I will be taking a healthy dose of rocket seeds, literally just the seeds of rocket. They thought it made your sweat smell better so that your armpits wouldn't hum so much. And apparently it was a kind of Viagra type of thing.
Now, you may think it bad form to leave my wife at home with the pigeon pie, but Restoration London was notoriously lax about the institution of marriage. Called academies of debauchery by one anonymous pamphlet in 1675, taverns would hire out private rooms in which to woo ladies behind your wife's back.
I love to see.
With my 17th century date food, I'm fairly sure I'm going to knock this one right off her feet.
Supper. Fish heads, prawns and lobsters, sweet potato and burdock tart, claret.
I'm quite adventurous, actually, when it comes to
Well, go on
food, so... I don't know if I'd go for fish head.
Eat the whole thing?
No, you're joking. Can I not pick at it? I don't want to.
Absolutely not, I'll be appalled.
I mean, this doesn't really appeal to me, actually. I'm not really that passionate about fish heads.
Really?
No, you're not, no.
Not exactly the best of starts.
Try it.
Maybe a plate of lobster and prawns will loosen her up.
Do you want a lobster?
Yeah, let's. Wow, that's appetising. It's all about presentation then.
Really is, that's what I
Yeah.
find. Would this do it for you now, if the chap said pair of lobsters?
Oh, I absolutely love lobster. It's my favourite.
Maybe I'm in there.
Stuff staying at home with the chick head pie, I've put on my tartiest dress and I'm off to do business at the theatre. Whereas life for a lady was prescribed by their duties at home and the odd restoration party, for the lower class wench, if you were buxom and bolshy, life could be a whole lot more open. And the one place you could blatantly climb society's greasy pole was at the theatre.
What's brilliant about this place is that it was the only place where single women, or newly single, such as myself, could actually have a chance, just a shot at social climbing. And they could sell oranges. And so I'm going to give it a go and see if the Lord of the Rings audience are game for some citrus-based refreshment.
Selling oranges was actually a euphemism for being for sale oneself, as befits the life of the most famous orange seller of all, Nell Gwynn. The Restoration was the first time women were allowed to tread the boards, starting life as a lowly herring seller. Hello. Pretty, witty Nell ended up on stage and in Charles II's bed on £2,000 a year. Wonder what I'll be worth tonight.
Have you seen the film High Noon?
No.
Basically, this is sort of Pistols at Dawn. This is a kind of face-off. This is, my big bag of fruit and one herring against your commercially produced and yet very satisfying, I'm sure, on a very superficial level, ice cream. Oranges.
Interval ice cream, ladies and gentlemen.
Interval herring, ladies and gentlemen. Candied sweetmeats, herring.
I've got caramel and hazelnut, vanilla.
And I've got a herring.
Or strawberry and cream.
I've got oranges and lemons, vitamin C, antioxidants, omega-3 and 6.
I've got fruit shoot.
I've got a funny costume. Come on, you want an orange? What's
Go on,
orange?
give me an orange.
Go on, have an orange. Go on, have an orange.
How much are they?
They're a quid. Now, they're from the New World.
From New World.
They're from the New World. For you, okay, 20p.
No, it's alright, £1. I'll give you £1.
You're a beautiful man.
Just to see a dead fish with my orange.
So do you want the dead fish? Because that's 50p. Well, after any sale, you feel exhilarated. And I see that people are going for the hard stuff first, and they'll wait for the really easy sell, which, of course, is the herring later on. Oranges. Anyone like an orange? Like an orange?
I'm going to go out this evening.
At the tavern, it's time to unsheath my secret weapon. No, not my sword. My chat-up lines.
You're going to be jelly by the time I'm finished. You are the beauty without parallel. In your face, all the graces, and in your mind, all the virtues are met. He that looks upon your mild aspect, were it the most savage creature, would derive a new nature from your beauty.
Wow.
Right, should we go?
That's amazing. They came out with these cheers. No, I'm loving them. I think, how much effort they actually put into these chat-up lines. Really, really beautiful.
Your breasts are 2 mountains of pure snow, from the 2 fountains whereof Cupid himself sucks nectar. Lean in, lean in.
I'm blushing.
I've got to say that the modern girls are so much easier than the 17th century ones. I tell you, the way she opened up with those lines and that food, it's fantastic. I'm going to go out like this every time, I think.
I would love to see Giles again. I think he's very, very intelligent, very intellectual. He's a lovely guy. Very crude, but I quite like that. It's quite fun. So, yeah, it'd be nice.
So watch this space?
Watch this space, yeah.
That was excellent. That was really, I feel really awake, really, it's nice to be out, you get a real sense that for a married woman, you'd just be stuck in the kitchen, killing things, cooking things, and then being upstairs, being sort of compliant and a bit thick and quiet. It's a real breath of fresh air, it's really nice.
It's day 6 on our journey through Restoration food, and today we're having a plague picnic. In 1666, the plague had been ravaging Britain for a year. With 1/5 of London's population dead and apothecaries roaming the streets in protective masks, the Great Fire broke out to finish everybody off. Armed with a basket full of remedies, we've come to the safe south side of the river, to the very spot where Londoners gathered to watch the Great Fire burn their beloved city to the ground.
dinner. Roast shoulder of lamb, boiled onions, the gallbladder of a hare, ship's biscuits, parmesan, sack.
Onions were thought to be a cure for the plague. Basically everything was thought to be a cure for the plague. It absorbed the vapours. What they would do, they'd take 3 or 4 peeled onions, leave them in the street outside plague houses, and it was thought that they would absorb the vapours. Whereas all it did was attract the rats which actually carried the plague. There was even a fellow who, on a boat very much like that one over there, piled it up with onions and sailed it down the river with a following wind.
And just deposit them in the tank.
And the idea was that all the plague miasma would get soaked up by the boat.
This is a really nice blooded gallbladder, which is excellent for plague. Always serve gallbladder properly. Don't stint on presentation.
Oh, the little...
With a little bit of jus. There you go, ready to serve.
That's hardly a bite. That's not anything.
It's more of a bite than you've had.
Is it bad?
Right, it's plastic. I'm getting plastic, I'm getting poo, I'm getting blood, I'm getting iron, I'm getting metal. Hairs! Parmesan.
Parmesan, so exotic it was spelt with a Z, was a serious luxury. With duties stamped on it in 8 cities on the way to London, it was so expensive it was traded as currency between the rich.
It was just very, very popular at the time. Pepys loved Parmesan so much that when the Great Fire came, he buried his stash of it in the garden. That's what he wanted to save. Forget the wife. Who cares about her?
The fire raged for 4 days and 4 nights, and finally finished off the rats that carried the fleas that carried the plague. It's our final day in Restoration Britain, and what better way to finish off our week than with a recreation of one of the most famous meals in history, Samuel Pepys's Stone Feast. This meal was held every year on the anniversary of the removal of his bladder stone in 1658, and today we're recreating the Stone Feast held on the 4th of April 1663. Before the blowout, I'm a little curious to find out why Pepys deemed his operation worthy of such a tribute, and Dirk Budke is only too happy to demonstrate.
Well, we are just minutes away from the most dangerous operation at this time.
What is a bladder stone?
Well, it's a lot of calcium build up in your bladder, in your kidney, wherever it can happen, just from very often wrong diet. Now I have my fun.
No, it's going to be more. It's going to hurt you more than it's going to hurt me.
I
doubt it very much.
So. Yeah. I don't think so.
Okay. For fear of losing their lives on the operating table, most of those afflicted would put off having the operation for years. In the end, however, most decided that they would rather risk death than live with the excruciating pain of the stone for any longer.
They use this to get into your bladder.
Well, I'm a little bit shriveled in that department just at the moment.
It might be.
A thin metal needle, called a staff, was inserted down the penis to locate the stone. A small incision was then made between the anus and the scrotum, and the stone violently pulled out with a pair of forceps, often requiring the power of 2 men.
But always bear in mind that there are people behind you and on the side who really hold you down, because it took a couple of minutes before the pain was so unbearable that you passed out. The year after, the first 4 all died, but not because the operation was not a success. It was just bacterial infection. The instruments weren't clean.
Pepys himself was one of the lucky survivors, but was left with an open wound for the rest of his life, which never properly healed. The Stone Feast of 1663 started at midday and lasted till 10 o'clock at night, costing Pepys £5, the equivalent of £750 today. Joining us for this very special occasion are historian and author James Long and Pepys aficionado Hilary Davin-Wetton.
Anybody like some claret?
Yes. And what better way to kick off our feast than with our first toast?
The king. The king.
Okay.
The king.
The king. Dinner as recorded by Pepys' own hand in his diary.
We had a fricassee of rabbits and chicken, a leg of mutton boiled, 3 carps in a dish, a great dish of a side of lamb, a dish of roasted pigeons, a dish of 4 lobsters, 3 tarts, a lamprey pie, a most rare pie, a dish of anchovies, good wine of several sorts, and all things mighty noble and to my great content.
Rabbit and chicken fricassee. Beautiful. With a new French influence. Can I propose a toast to the chef
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Toasts were a tradition that astonished visitors to Britain. Custom had it that the health of each guest round the table was toasted, and the one downed one's entire glass each time.
Right. I'm going to give you a bit less this time, I did. Right, now look, we've got to read all of this stuff before the next one even comes.
Yes.
We're going to start with this.
I'm to carve it, of course.
We're very confident.
Right.
It was customary at the time for the hostess to do the carving. In preparation, rich housewives were sent to carving schools and reminded not to sweat more in carving the meat than the cook made in roasting it.
There's a toast. Just say when. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good meat. Very nice. To the mutton.
God bless it. May it sail nicely.
Can I get anyone another course? Some carp, fricassee. Everyone's talking about fricassee, latest thing.
French, dangerous, Catholic, don't like it.
Right, I shall pass this round if I can still stand up just about.
We need a spoon or some kind of serving thing.
You can hike that up with you.
But then we won't get any juice. Will you not argue with me, woman? Will you
I
go
will
and get
argue
a
with you
spoon
because
so we
I'm
can
not
serve
a
it out?
servant. Not yet. I've got to wait
Well, then
another
call
50
one of the
years
servants.
before I become one of those.
I think you need to invent the spoon quite quickly.
It's quite quick. I apologise to my wife when she's been drinking. She gets a bit like this. Can we have a spoon?
To the
or some sort of
emancipation of
serving?
women.
Would they have used...
Go, drain it, throw it down your neck.
It's easy to see how people might get a stone after all this protein, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. We should toast your stone.
To the stone.
I should toast the surgeon.
While the lamb and the carp are being drunkenly devoured upstairs, cook has a slippery problem on her hands in the kitchen.
I can't say I'm very proud of my behaviour. I was a bit girly, but you know it was slithery and it was, so it's okay. We're back under control.
Eels from the Thames were bought live at the fish market, and now, like a true 17th century maid, cook has the unenviable task of dispatching it for our pie. But even after being killed, the nerves keep the muscles twitching.
Generally, when something's on your chopping board, it stops moving. So having something flippering around on it is quite a new one for me. You're not alive, and soon you're not going to have any guts, and you've got to stop moving soon. I mean, you cut off. Gross, 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 triple gross. This eel has no head, no guts, and is still cruising around my board. It's. I mean, I'm quite. Just don't do that again. No, I mean it. It's just time to get a bit serious now. So there's not a lot of meat left on this, but I think I might give them a little surprise. Let them look at the eel head that I've been struggling with for a while.
Blimey. Did you really have a lobster?
I was giving crap.
Oh, you spilt eel juice on me.
Shall I cut some eel pie?
In a spirit of challenge, I'm going to try.
Come on, hot stuff. Get it down you. Come on. There you go. To the eel. Huzzah to the eel.
After the eel, we tackle another notorious 17th century fish, the anchovy.
Oh, my darling.
Oh, love it, anchovy.
Well, anchovies were served in pubs because the tavern owners like to make sure that their guests were as thirsty as they possibly could be. And Pete sort of records early on in the diary a few occasions when he stood rounds of anchovies to his friends. And then he has some rather salty ones and spends several lines whinging on about the terrible night he had afterwards. What are you holding behind my head?
Just...
Thereafter, anchovies came to be seen as drunkards' food, a term that's becoming more and more appropriate with every toast.
It's a lobster, surely.
Happy days, lobster.
How you doing?
Oh, very good, my dear.
Wine, an upper-middle-class extravagance, was less alcoholic than it is today. But even so, the sheer quantities are proving too much for our feeble 21st century constitutions.
If any of the chaps want to join me.
I'm feeling less keen on this.
I might join you in a bit, though.
I think the cat's about to get the fright of his life. Cat thinks they're serving eel again.
Chamber pots were hidden behind curtains in most dining rooms for the relief of gentlemen after dinner. But I'm afraid I just can't wait.
21st century television.
That's a nice healthy flow, isn't it?
I know we'll have to go now.
Your husband hasn't got prostate problems yet, then?
I tell you what, it's got an absolutely charming foam on it.
I am a woman of the world, but I've never seen a man peeing after dinner, and actually, it didn't matter.
You get the real flavour of the age, Giles, and I admire you for it. I do.
The use of the word flavour. Hurrah, chef!
Hey, chef! Thank you very much.
I think we should do that, don't you?
Peep's guests stayed so long at dinner, they were eventually sent home at 10 o'clock with a 17th century classic sack posset. Posset is made from eggs, sack, a fortified Spanish wine like sherry, sugar, nutmeg, and hot cream infused with cinnamon.
A little sack posset for you, sir.
Oh, that is cracking. That is absolutely staggering. That is wonderful.
Chef! That will put you to sleep, guaranteed. Oh. Enjoy.
Good. Fantastic.
Mmm.
Nice.
That is just gorgeous.
Final toast to the possets. Delicious.
The posset.
Warm.
Possets were considered an aphrodisiac and were given to married couples on their wedding night. But on our very final night in 17th century Britain, I'm afraid they've sent us straight to sleep.
I need you to know how much I love posset. It's one of the few things I can remember from this evening.
Possets rock, and I feel good this morning, and I have slept well, all on account of posset. The rest of their diet they can blow out their arse.
Over the last 7 days, I've consumed various parts of 80 different animals, drunk 22 litres of alcohol, and had about 12 vegetables. So I'm back to the clinic to hear the damage.
Good morning, Giles. How are you doing?
And it seems my latest poo sample has caused quite a stink.
I can tell you we had really major differences.
Really?
Yeah, let's start with the obvious thing. You just open the bottle and you say, oh my God.
I'm so sorry.
You had an elevated level of pancreatic fat in your
What does this
stool.
mean? This is you're saying that I didn't process certain amounts of fat, so I just ate it and it went straight through without being...
Yes. If you would carry on with this diet for a long period of time, the risk to increase colorectal cancer is really high, much higher than on a normal healthy diet.
Blimey, thank God I've only been doing this for a week.
And there's one thing...
But Dirk's got some more bad news.
Again, you definitely have an overworked liver. So the liver will be very thankful if you give it a rest.
So how long would I have to not drink alcohol for to give my liver a bit of a rest?
I would say if you've done this diet now for a week and you give your liver rest for
And a few hours?
Weeks
2 weeks? I was thinking if I didn't have a drink until about 6 o'clock, my liver would be fine.
No, that's probably not enough.
Well, how extraordinary. I didn't need Dirk to tell me how bad I'd felt, but how odd that the results in such a short time, you know, that my poo had become so rank and so full of fat that I hadn't processed because of my low-fibre diet. And all those other things that were wrong with me. I mean, I really am very glad to be leaving the 17th century behind. I'm really glad to get back to a high-fibre, proper, nice, tasty diet of green things so that and my turd can return to normal. Because frankly, the 17th century London must have been a very smelly place indeed.
Next time, we're in the Victorian era, when animals' heads were either mounted on the wall or served up on a plate. We'll be following in the footsteps of Darwin.
He's looking at you, maggot.
And celebrating a Victorian Christmas.
Join Storyville at the biggest Chinese restaurant in the world. Live snakes on the menu over on BBC4.
Tonight
now.
on Newsnight, has the green dream been killed off at the first sign of economic pressure? An exclusive report from the front line in Afghanistan about the shocking rates of post-traumatic stress disorder and memories of a real Hollywood player, Sidney Pollack.